A very good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for joining this presentation this afternoon, all focused on the security that sort of surrounds your hybrid working future. Two things to kick off with. Number one, if you've got a copy of this, it happens to have a really nice article, I say that because I wrote it, on the front, all about avoid having a cyber attack turn into a full breach. So there's a free copy of that on all of your chairs. There's also a copy of the cybercrime in the legal sector, which is certainly worth a read. And I'd encourage you, while you're here in terms of the cyber security stuff, to certainly go and check out the IASME Pavilion over in the far corner. There's also a number of people here discussing all around the security that faces your future. More interestingly, if you happen to have one of these, that's probably the most interesting thing. Has everyone got one of these? Okay, there are winners in here. So if you have got your Crack the Safe scratch card, I would encourage you, following this presentation, to go and visit our stand 500, which is just by the entrance. Scratch it and stick the code in the safe and see if you've won a prize. There's a couple of Google, there's one Google prize and there's a couple of other nice tasty things in there as well. Anyway, to press on. My name is Neil Sperring and I'm the Managing Director of Xeria. Xeria is a managed services provider based in Surrey, in Hampshire, sort of that region. And I founded the company back in 2013 as a traditional managed services business. We've grown quite well over that time. We remain privately owned. We really do have quite a large growing global presence, particularly in the US as well as the UK. The team are fundamentally all based here in the UK, and we have a particular sort of centric focus on our security operations centre, focusing on managing the security presence of a number of our customers. And those customers range from small to enterprise businesses. We are regarded as a trusted advisor, as well as just being a services provider to a wide range of industries, and we're fortunate that we have quite a large presence in sort of areas such as retail, accounting, healthcare, and a large presence in aviation. So we tend to work with industries that are quite heavily regulated, and that's quite a comfortable position for us. Unique to us, you might hear about public cloud all being the talk, but those clients that have a lot of IT on site still, who haven't quite gone public, we offer that kind of middle layer of private cloud, and that private cloud environment is owned by us. It's run in data centers that we manage. It is geo-redundant, so therefore we are fully prepared for any particular outages that may occur. And again, we host quite valuable client compute, and more importantly, quite a lot of workloads that contain sensitive data. So I want to touch on the evolutionary arms race. Now, that is a term that you perhaps didn't expect in this presentation, but we have this predator versus prey scenario going on in the security world when it comes to IT. And it fails me how people are not staying one step ahead of their predators. They're quite happily accept sometimes they're open prey out there on the open internet. They don't really have much concern about their data. They assume it's a third party that's looking after it. However, the predator-prey arms race that you are in, you are all prey, regardless, is one that you really have got to take with some serious sort of notion. It is an arms race, and it's a co-evolutionary process, and much like we find in nature, you do need to evolve as quickly as your predators do. If they adapt and find new techniques to overcome your security, then you are ultimately at risk. And it still shocks me how few businesses accept that those risks are very prevalent and very real. And to give you an example, today we're running some free checks on our stand that all search the dark web, the topic I'm going to come on to shortly. And we've already exposed a number of credentials that people are still using at the very point they were stood at our stand. And the number of gasps that you get from people understanding that that data is readily available on the internet. So, I mean, they're not new topics by any means, but the landscape, like anything in tech, is changing at an exponential rate. and we need to appreciate that. And really, we're quite guilty in the technical space of calling these things different things as they evolve. Cyber security. Well, I remember many years ago, it was just IT security. It was all about firewalls. It was all about the basics. Now, it's such a large breadth of stuff that we have to take into consideration. But ultimately, the key message here to take away is that you are vulnerable. You are that prey that the predators seek. So, lots of people don't understand that the internet is actually formed of a number of layers, and this sort of graphic is not going to be new to some people. It's something that's referred to quite often. But typically, the vast majority of our internet activity sits within the surface web. And this is an area of the internet that we feel most comfortable. We place orders on Amazon, we do our weekly shop with Tesco's or the likes, and it's all done in a matter of clicks. We browse through, and more importantly, upload key information about ourselves across platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all too much without any sort of real concern. But alongside this normal activity, we also undertake activities such as online banking, communicate via email, or carry out instant messaging. And honestly, a number of people download what we believe to be harmless content. However, activities at the surface layer are what cyber criminals, threat actors, hackers, whatever you want to call them. They go by many different terms. But that's where they prey. That's where they want to find your valuable information. And that information that's gathered on the surface web tends to be personally identifiable to you and or your business. And that information about you personally or your business, tied together with key things like credit card information or who you transact with on a frequent basis, or who you're messaging about transactions, combined makes for a very good sale on something called the dark web. Now, the dark web is where you will find these threat actors, these hackers, trying to take your data from the surface and present it in such a way that it has value to people that want to perhaps expose your credit card and make purchases, or perhaps take valuable information. Of course, we always remember things like the TalkTalk hack and things like that. That data has value, and the value of that data and what they choose to do with it can seriously impact your business operations to the extent that you could lose respect in this, in your space, and ultimately lose your business. So a lot of people ask me, well, is this not traceable? And this activity, can it be tracked, traced at all? And the key answer here is that it's pretty much a resounding no. A lot of the activities and the transactions that take place here on the dark web are fundamentally done using cryptocurrencies. And by cryptocurrencies, I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with things like Bitcoin and some of those other currencies that exist there. But they are largely untraceable. And really, there's not a lot you can do about it. Once it's exposed, it's exposed. What we're trying to do here at this event is offer people the opportunity to come to our stand, provide us some, basically provide us your domain of your organisation, and we will show you what information has been gleaned from the dark web. And then you can take that information and you can decide what you do with it. We exposed some LinkedIn credentials earlier. We've exposed numerous credentials on numerous platforms that are all available out on the dark web. So it really is your choice. And of course, wrapped alongside that, you may check today and you might find actually we're not that vulnerable. But of course, you might be tomorrow. And this is a constantly active and evolving thing. And where I talked about the predator and prey scenario, it's the evolution of the threat. The threats that exist today won't be the same tomorrow. So when you are on that surface web, you need to exercise caution, you need to exercise a level of security. And that's why we encourage people to build a multi-layer approach to securing their working environment. And I think we can all appreciate that when we were thrown with a pandemic, nobody expected everyone to be working from home, completely disconnected from the office. Yes, you might have connectivity already set up to the office to get to key systems and services. However, a number of organisations, and we saw it firsthand, literally went out and downloaded, your Zoom calls, and immediately everyone had laptops that were deployed within sort of nanoseconds, all with a complete disregard to security. And we find that this, when we approach any client, we often present them with a slide very similar to this. And we still find organisations are in this slouched approach to their IT security. Their IT vendor or their IT support organisation is still having a discussion around antivirus. How long have we had antivirus? How long have we had firewalls? How long have we been expected to enable software updates? Data backups was something that I was doing 21 years ago when I started out in this space. Email security, even the basics are still missing. Move up the scale to progressive, and you can immediately see when you start enforcing things like two-factor authentication, and you're running things like password managers so that you're creating randomized passwords on a regular basis, you can immediately see how you've gone from a slouched position where, well, we kind of look after our estate, we've got a firewall, it's been in the closet for 5 years, we've got some antivirus, but nobody's really managing that estate. You step up to progressive, and you've got next generation firewalls, that are scanning content and users' activities, not just in an office where we all used to be, but also remotely. How to attacker on that very large attack surface is going to immediately go, well, do you know what, they're just a little bit too difficult for me. I will go and find some more slouched approached organisations. And then, of course, you've got people who have gone a step further, and we regard as strong. Now, they are few and far between, let me say. And you'll see pointed there on point 3, the incident response plan, and that's what this leaflet goes into. Goes into detail about how you should form an incident response plan and what key measures you should be putting in place ahead of the day when it will happen. Because typically, it already has, you just don't know it. And you could have had that threat actor, hacker, inside not necessarily your corporate network, but on a device or somewhere that's been gradually waiting and sat there looking for the day when they're going to click their fingers, press a button, and take what they want. But if you increase the security that sits around your systems and services, that threat is pushed away further and further. And it puts you in a much stronger position. And I cannot emphasize that one of the great things we enjoy, we worry almost when we see organisations in a slouched position, and in this sector there most certainly are a number of those. It's pleasing when we see people that are progressive, but there's very few people that are strong. And if you're running a firm and you're running your organisation and you're handling client information and also moving large sums of money quite often, you need to be in that strong position, because if you are breached, it will cost you more than all these controls have cost you throughout the whole time you've been in business, because you will be out of business. There are, at this event, quite a number of discussions all around cyber security and what you can do. And I think it's fair to say that we all want to overcome these risks, yeah? We don't want to be somebody that's on that attack surface. We don't want to be somebody that's helping the predators that surround us to attack us. So if you're going to focus on your cyber security in any way, I would highly recommend that you consider assessing your vulnerability. If you've got holes that need plugging, it's best to know what they are. Now, we often say to clients that if you undertake a vulnerability assessment, that doesn't suddenly mean a whole number of costs. It doesn't suddenly mean a whole number of activities. What it means is, are you in that slouch position that we talked about, or are you progressive? Because wherever you are on the journey, we don't really want you to be immediately strong and introduce a whole load of costs and infrastructure and considerations that nobody's thought of. But let's take you on the journey. And your provider should be taking you on that journey, because if they're not, they're leaving you exposed. So it's about solving and mitigating the risk. And the first step is that assessment of your vulnerability. And some people talk about penetration testing and going all in with it all. The reality is that you don't need those advanced things. You simply need to carry out a question and answer session, which takes no more than a couple of days with the right people in the organisation, to assess what are you doing. And then it's about putting in the sensible control measures that sit around it. One of the things that we actively encourage clients, both existing and new to us, to complete, is the government-backed Cyber Essentials scheme, which comes in two flavours. You've got the Cyber Essentials Basic, which I personally believe is a good base level assessment of where you are. And then you've got the one that goes Plus. Now that's when you really start looking at, in depth, certain key areas of your IT infrastructure and services. But let's be honest, if you have a vulnerability assessment coined and put together with a Cyber Essentials certification, at least then, God forbid if the worst happens, you can say, well actually my security posture was audited, it was re-audited on a regular basis, and we did everything we could to protect ourselves. And you have a partner there who is looking after those key considerations. And all I would say is if you're not doing this in your organisations, you are going to hold yourself open to those vulnerabilities. And it will not be long before you are exposed on things like the dark web, or actually just somebody playing around in this space can do a lot of damage. You don't have to be advanced in skill set when it comes to IT security to break the basics. So please, it's completely free. Do come along to Stand 500 and please do put your credentials, sorry, not your credentials, but please give us your domains and your pertinent information in that way, and we will immediately show you if there's anything there that's an immediate risk. Now you can go away and you can deal with that, change passwords, adopt a password manager and things like that, all without having to engage our services. But if anything, learn from it, because your credentials are likely to be somewhere out there in some way, shape or form. That wraps up everything I wanted to talk about. I'm not somebody that tends to focus on extenuating presentations, but fundamentally it's that predator-prey conversation that you need to be aware of. You need to understand that you are prey that is susceptible to these risks. So once again, thank you very much for your time. I encourage you to take a copy of this with you and give it a read, and certainly if nothing else, at least prepare a plan should the worst happen. Thank you very much.